Namaste, everybody. I'm Sandy Graham, co-director of VASA and a member of the Vedic Friends Association. I would like to extend a warm welcome to all our distinguished guests and speakers to Dharma Dialogues. Dharma Dialogues is held on the first Thursday of each month, and this month's topic is what are the most fascinating lessons from the Mahabharata, Part 1. All right, and our special guest speakers today are Jeffrey Armstrong and Stephen Knapp. It's my pleasure to introduce you to our host, the president of Vedic Friends Association, Benny Tillman, Balabhadra Dasa. But before he begins, may I ask you, Benny, to please open with a Sanskrit invocation to honor the gurus, please?
Thank you, Sandy ji. Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Jananjanan Salakaya Chakru Minitam Nena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadam Hayam Dadate Swavadantikam Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So it is my honor and more so pleasure to be in this wonderful satsanga today on a topic that I've become more recently super excited about, which is Mahabharata. Just the last couple of weeks, I've listened to the entire Mahabharata. I had never really listened to or read the entire Mahabharata because my Guru Maharaj, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, the founder of the Hare Krishna movement, he interspersed Mahabharata throughout his writings. In the Bhagavatam, of course, Bhagavad Gita is from Mahabharata. But just hearing the entire Mahabharata, it just made me realize the great need in the world today for the Mahabharata, because all of the interactions between the Pandavas and the Kauravas, and it speaks to everything we need in the world today. How to deal with people, how to deal with leadership, family. I mean, what can we say about Queen Kunti and Devahuti, all these wonderful personalities. So I'm extremely excited to hear from Kavindra Rishi, Jeffrey Armstrong, and Stephen Knapp, because I know they have extensive knowledge in the Mahabharata. And as Sandy pointed out, this is just the first in a series, and we're not even sure it may go for the rest of the year because it's such an exciting topic, and so many people want to jump on board. So I'm going to begin by welcoming our first speaker, and I'll introduce him, and that's my dear friend and godbrother, Jeffrey Armstrong, Kavindra Rishi. He's the founder of VASA, Vedic Academy of Sciences and Arts, an online educational center focusing on the philosophy and psychology of yoga, Ayurveda, Jyotish, and Vedanta. Jeffrey Armstrong Kavindra Rishi is the co-chairman of VFA, Vedic Friends Association, and a scholar on the British Board of Dharmic Scholars. As a yoga practitioner for the last 50 years, he retired from corporate life 28 years ago and has been teaching full-time on behalf of the Vedic Sanatana Dharma. Jeffrey is a best-selling author, a philosopher, a poet, and a Vedic astrologer for over 45 years. He received the Canadian Hindu Chamber of Commerce Lifetime Achievement Award in 2022 and was recently honored with the ICCR Distinguished Indologist Award by India for his contributions to Sanatana Dharma and for the first decolonized Gita, the Bhagavad Gita comes alive. So please join with me in welcoming my dear friend and our esteemed speaker for tonight, Jeffrey Armstrong, Kavindra Rishi.
Thank you so much, Balabhadra. Namaste to everyone. And let me also remind you, Sandhya Devi and I have been working together for 20-some years, 28 years, bringing the Vedic knowledge to the world. It's our entire dedication. It is all that we are dedicated to doing. And so she is encyclopedic in her activities. And this is what's happening that I'm so excited about, is that I am seeing this Vedic Vidya unfold as a renaissance, not just a, quote, religious movement. All the things that are accomplished in religion are an essential part of the Veda. But more to the point is that the Vedic culture, and especially the Vaishnava Vedic culture, as an ambassador, what I call Rambassador, as an ambassador for the avatars, the Dasa Purna, the complete avatars of the person of the Supreme Beings, to Mahabhūmi, to Earth. And because of that, the message, under the wonderful guidance of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, leading that lineage forward, the persons of the divine, whether they be devas and devis or avatars of the highest order, Matsya Kurma Varahascha, Narasingho cha Vamana, Ramo Ramacha Ramascha, Krishna Kalkir Janardanaha. We've been informed and invited to become members of the hosts of the devas and devis and cooperate with them, working with Mahabhūmi, Mother Nature, and we've been given our personhood back. Nothing could be more exciting and amazing, and such an invitation to truly be who we are. And in your company, in the company of others, also looking through eyes of that type, listening with ears that listen for the real person, and also understand seva. Seva is, no matter how big, and today we're talking about that big in the Mahabharata, because it's the scale on which this knowledge was brought to us 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 years ago. And when it was brought, it was the descent of true ambassadorial in person, not sending someone, but coming yourself, manifestations of the Supreme Person. Bhagavan Sri Krishna, Radhe Shyam, brought the whole crew, brought them down here to Mahabhūmi at the beginning of Kali Yuga, when they were essentially needed, and then started the movement that all of us are now participants in one or a myriad of ways, and that is to become representatives of the persons who are the source of everything. This is the excitement of the Mahabharata. This is 7,000 years ago. This is not a made-up story. This is a historical event of the descent of the supreme and ultimate being, Bhagavan Sri Krishna, and his companions, all to the country that we now call India, politically in the world, but was known as Bharat. And the book, the Mahābhārata, contains a segment known as the Bhagavad Gita. And the Bhagavad Gita is the amazing conversation between Arjuna as our ambassador on our behalf. And with that, let's see if we can do this. Not very easily. Camera's not cooperating. This is a copy of the Bhagavad Gita. Comes alive. Because each one of us as ambassadors, as Rambassadors of this civilization and its culture and its purposes, don't make ourselves the center of what's happening. We make ourselves the representative carrying important pieces to the puzzle of who are we? Where are we? What are we? And this is what they call the Purna avatars. And in the Vedic civilization, the two most recent and complete were Ram and Sita in the Ramayana, and Bhagavan Sri Krishna and Radha and all of his associates, the gopis and gopas, and showing us how to have personal friendship and service relationships and perfect our life in the process. I know that all of you who are present here are dedicated to this. It's an honor to be in your presence, to know you, to be friends, because the people that we admire most, we try to become like. And in this case, anyone whose face you see right now on this screen, by all means, try to become like them. I do. Sandy does. We all do. Sandhya Devi, if I may. Kavindra Rishi, by initiation. Each of us who has dedicated ourselves to this Vedic Vidya, then this we know. We're now ambassadors and carriers of the most important visitation that has ever taken place on this planet. And that is the avatar, Purna, complete descent of the supreme and ultimate persons who are behind all of this, but they came in person. The Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavad Purana are two examples of texts that arose from that. Notes taken in Sanskrit by persons who were present, carrying forward through history for us the important knowledge that was spoken and given so that we may associate with it and benefit from it forever. We are so grateful. We can't say it often enough. Om Aganag Timirandasya Ganangana Salaka Chakshurun Militam Gena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobistam Stapitam Gena Bhutale Svayam Rup Gadamayam Dadati Svaparantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jutapara Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagra Jatam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha. We are the fortunate recipients of the legacy of acharyas who lived this as a lifestyle, taught by their personal example, and gave the most precious gift they could give us. It's an honor to be with you here today. Now, I hand the microphone back to you.
For those of you who are unfamiliar with the Mahabharata, I had asked Jeffrey to just give a very brief introduction of what he thought was one of the most important things. And over the series, we're going to ask other speakers to also highlight. So from what I heard Jeffrey said, it is the conversation between Krishna and all of his companions and delivering this amazing message to us. And there are thousands. And I would just like to add that there's always a controversy. Is it 5,000 years old? Is it 7,000 years old? And does it matter? Because this is a conversation, a historical account, perhaps exaggerated in some ways, we don't know. But can you think of any other story in history that goes into such detail about a war and a family and the wives and the children and what they did and the psychological profiles of characters of any war, any time in history? What do we know about the characters in the Ukraine war, for example? Pretty much nothing. And yet this story in the Mahabharata is so profound. Just imagine if it's 5,000 years ago that somebody or a group of people wrote down this story with such complex characters, stories within stories. There is nobody on the planet today that can write, not even AI, that could write such a complex plot. And for those of you who have not read the Mahabharata, I'm going to post a little later a couple of versions that will get you started right up to the very complex one. So stay tuned for that. Benny, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, I just want to jump into Jeffrey's mind a little bit because you have a few more minutes left in the time allotted. I would like if you could share, not to put you on the spot, but a particular pastime lesson from the Mahabharata. You gave an overview, which was really beautiful, but like for me, it's kind of like, Yudhisthira having to see hell because he wouldn't lie for Krishna. I know there's different ones. So is there one particular one that you can talk about for a few minutes and give it as a lesson that we can take away with us today?
All right. Well, because my last name at birth is Armstrong, I was always expected to be a warrior and to have a affiliation with warriors. My father was an Air Force captain in World War II, flying a C-46 transport plane, not shooting people, but carrying supplies back and forth. But I was raised in the midst of that. And the first thing that happened when I went into the Krishna consciousness movement, I was handed a 45 automatic, and they said, okay, Armstrong, protect the temples. So what I want to show you by this brief explanation is that the Kshatriya culture is not just warrior, it's protector. In fact, that's the point. The last thing they want to do is hurt someone and kill. You can't kill them, they're eternal, and they're the knowers and carriers of that. But what they do want is that Dharma, the true reality of living a life that is supportive to all beings, and knowing how to be dharmic, how to set an example, how to become an acharya, how to live that way with your personal example, not just wave your hand at people, but show by how you live. And we were introduced, and that introduction is called initiation. We were let in the door by authentic persons who came to the West searching for persons like ourselves who could hear, which means in previous lives, we've been doing this. And we've come back and said, at that time we said, anytime you want me back, as long as I can be of some service, I'll be glad to be there. To be in your company, my friends, is just like that. For me, it's overwhelmingly beautiful. I know how much you know, how great you are, how much you live what you're saying, and not just say it and be a hypocrite, but live it and be an acharya. I'm in the presence of many acharyas, and they're like we learned from the Abrahamic traditions, they're so humble, not beating their own drum. Instead, watch them. They teach by their personal example of how they live their life. And this is the true ambassador for the ultimate persons. And it was that the Mahabharata is based upon. The descent of the ultimate persons and their associates, the Devas and Devis who run the universe we're living in right now. And all of them came down at certain historical moments, which we were taught by our gurus, like A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and certain others who were carriers, and we are now carriers of this beautiful, empowering, endearing message. Honored to be here with you today. Now, back to you, Bob.
Thank you. That was beautiful. So now we definitely want to welcome to this dialogue, Dharma Dialogue on the Mahabharata, our esteemed founding president of VFA, Sri Stephen Knapp, or Sri Nandanandana, his initiated name by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And he's the founding president and co-chairman of the Vedic Friends Association, VFA. He's an American author, Vedic scholar, and spiritual teacher. In January 2025, Stephen Knapp received India's Padma Shri, the nation's fourth highest civilian honor, in recognition of his exceptional contributions to global Vedic literature and education. As a direct disciple of Srila Prabhupada, Stephen Knapp has dedicated over 40 years to studying and sharing Sanatana Dharma. I would say it's actually more like 50 years or more. So,
yeah, it's getting there, that's for sure.
He's authored over 58 acclaimed books. Somehow it keeps increasing. It was 50, it was 53, it was 55, now it's 58. He just never stops working, including The Secret Teachings of the Vedas and The Heart of Hinduism. His latest book, How We are all part of God. Why Your Life is Sacred reached #1 in new releases in Hindu theology on Amazon. So everyone, please join with me to welcome Stephen Knapp, Sri Nandananda. Haribol.
Well, thank you very much. Glad to be here, as Jeffrey was saying. And hopefully I can just share one of my favorite parts of the Mahabharata, which is called What is the Greatest Wonder in the World? So I'll keep my presentation down to, 15 or 20 minutes. But to me, one of the greatest lessons from the Mahabharata comes from the Vanaparva section, which is called Book of the Forest, chapter 313, verse 116. And it's therein we find an incident in which the Pandavas are near the end of their exile while living in the forest, and when they grow extremely thirsty. So they search for water and they find a lake, but this lake is guarded by a yaksha, or a subtle nature being. And he tells the Pandavas that they can drink only if they answer his questions. However, the brothers ignore him and try to drink the water anyway. But then, one by one, they all fall dead, the water having become poisoned by the yaksha. This is when King Yudhisthira, the last of the Pandava brothers, arrives on the scene. So the yaksha then explains that King Yudhisthira cannot drink unless he answers the questions that are quickly asked by the yaksha. So Yudhisthira complies and begins to answer over 100 philosophical questions presented by the yaksha. Yudhisthira answers each one correctly, and then they reach the final question, which is, what is the greatest wonder in the world? To this, Yudhisthira gives his famous answer, and I quote, "Day after day, countless beings go to the abode of death, yet those who are alive believe or carry on as if they will never die. What can be more wondrous than this?" End quote. So in this way, we can look around us and see so many people who witness others around them dying all the time. And intellectually, they know they are going to die. But mentally, they remain attached to their existence and everything in it and refuse to deal with the ever-approaching end of it, or think that they still have so much time that death is a long way away. So they continue life as if death does not matter, and they refuse to acknowledge the reality of their own mortality and thus never prepare for it. And that's why so many people sometimes are found to be completely off guard when they realize that death is approaching. Fortunately, in the story in the Mahabharata, it is revealed that the yaksha is actually Yamaraj, the lord of death and father of Yudhisthira. Yamaraj being greatly impressed with Yudhisthira in that he followed Dharma in every step. He then restores the Pandavas back to life. However, in our case, how many of us can look around and recognize that in spite of repeated warnings in the deaths and difficulties of others, so many people are living as if there is no tomorrow or no time when we will be forced to give up this body? Maybe we can recognize that in ourselves. Maybe we feel this topic is too depressing, a real drag, a huge bummer. Why bring ourselves down by dealing with this topic? But we think I've got other things to think about that preoccupy my life. However, on a personal basis, I take this episode in the Mahabharata personally. Why? Because I'm now 75 years old. And as I look around, I see most of my friends and the people and even the devotees I know all leave this world usually between 70 and 80 years of age. Some sooner, some later, but this is the average. So time is of the essence. And it is best that if I am going to be ready for leaving this world, then I better get prepared. But why should we get prepared? Because death is the final test we face in this life. Even the Dalai Lama once said that he looked forward to the time when he leaves his body because that is the final test for which he has prepared all of his life. using all of his studies, all of his practices for the final moment. And he is looking forward to how well he does. So what we need to understand is that as spiritual beings, the body may drop, but we move on. Whereas the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 22, verse 20 explains, for the soul there is neither birth nor death at any time. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. End quote. So the soul does not die. That's the point. So in this way, the soul moves on after it leaves the body. But what determines our next existence? Where do we go from here? It is further described that one's consciousness is shaped by the impressions accumulated by one's lifetime of thoughts, words, and deeds. This is expressed in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, verse 6, where it says, whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, this is Krishna talking to Arjuna, that state he will attain without fail. End quote. In other words, our consciousness brings us to our next existence according to our desires, our thoughts, our proclivities, and also modified by our karma. So everything is adjusted according to those things. So the consciousness that we have developed by the time we reach the end of life is most important. Many people don't consider it that, but this is something that as spiritual beings we need to be prepared for and we need to understand. So we want to create the best level of consciousness that we can, so when we can enter death in the right frame of mind to help bring ourselves to the best possible situation in our next life. So what can we do for this? I've already written one book called Facing Death, Welcoming the Afterlife, which goes into detail about how to do this, how to prepare for the end moment. But I won't go through it all right now. But a few features that we can point to is, for example, having the right attitude. We want to have the right frame of mind. We should have an attitude of gratitude, as they say. We should be thankful for and focus on how well we have done in enduring the many situations that have come our way through this life, and how much we have helped uplift others with whom we have come in contact. We should not dwell on our failures and beat ourselves up over all the bad things we have done. We are all works in progress, no question of that. And mistakes are bound to be made, but they are simply bumps on the road to help point us in the right direction. They are like lessons from which we learn, if, of course, we don't miss the message. And in this way, life itself is like a classroom or in a school. We learn and develop from it. And the development is perceived by what kind of level of consciousness we have finally attained at the end of this life. So this also means that we should protect our consciousness by choosing the most positive level of association. This means we should disconnect from those who are overly negative, overly critical, or those who do not have our best interest at heart. We should disconnect from the discouraging news of the day, or from those things that have little to do with what we are or what we can do, which is pretty much the whole nightly news, you might say, and also from those who are not supportive of us. We need to surround ourselves with beauty, encouragement, love, and care. Some of the things we also may do to uplift our consciousness is to meditate, or for some of us, chant our japa in the form of the Hare Krishna mantra, or read the sacred texts like the Bhagavad Purana, Mahābhārata, or Bhagavad Gita, which is a part of the Mahabharata, as Jeffrey was saying. So these are other such, and these and other such texts that we can outline, like the Upanishads and Vedanta Sutras. These all are texts that refine or spiritualize our consciousness. I call it spiritualize because it brings the consciousness up to a spiritual level if you take it to the proper point. So they explain numerous ways to live life in an uplifting manner and how to prepare for death. And most importantly, they guide us to focus our attention on our spiritual identity and our connection with the supreme reality. This prepares us it prepares the mind and us, but it prepares our consciousness for what is to come at the end of this life. In this way, we become prepared, or like the saying goes, we die now but leave later, ready to let go of the illusion of material existence and focus on the spiritual reality of our real identity. As Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, he further explains, and I quote, "Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting." Of course, Arjuna was a kshatriya, he was a warrior. So his main activity, his main duty was to engage in protecting Dharma. That was his focus. But Krishna says, while you're focused on your duties, because any of us have duties, we can be a father, a mother, a son or daughter, maybe a computer technician or a farmer or whatever. But whatever our duties are, as Krishna explains, with your activities dedicated to me and your mind intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. End quote. So in other words, herein it becomes clear that throughout our activities and in the process of leaving the body especially, we focus our attention, our meditation on the supreme destination. This form of thought actually helps bring that reality closer to us. Like I say, meditation is a form of bringing that object of meditation closer to us. Or another way of saying, worry is like a meditation that brings what you don't want closer to you. So, or as they say, if you have a problem that you cannot resolve, okay, why worry about it? Or if you have a problem that you can resolve, then again, why worry about it? Or some people say, don't sweat the small stuff, it's all small stuff. So the point of it is, as we work in this way, the higher reality begins to open up to us. It reveals itself to us, and we can then slip from this material existence into that higher spiritual reality, which is the actual identity of the Atman, or spirit soul, linked to the Paramatman, or the Supreme Being, or Lord Sri Krishna. So as we meditate in this way, our lives can enter a stage of ultimate peace and transcendence, which far outweighs the constant activity and even the chaos that often surrounds us in this world. Then we also see that this world actually no longer needs us. There's nothing to hold on to. There's nothing to cling to. There's no reason to remain attached to all these different things that we've encountered in this life. So we leave our mark on this world in whatever we're able to do. But the point of it is, once we have done our part, or as much as we need to do, like going from one classroom into another, we can then leave this world behind while we reach our higher destiny. And when we have done everything we have needed to do, then it is time to move on. What's the point of hanging around if we've already done everything that we have done in this life? So we move on to our next stage of existence, or our next step in our destiny. This is our goal. And on a personal level, this is what I am preparing for now. And this is why this episode in the Mahabharata carries so much meaning for me. And I could go on and on about it, but anyway, thank you so much. And Jai Sri Krishna.
Hey, thank you so much, Stephen Knapp, Sri Nandananda. You reminded me of a quote that Srila Prabhupada gives quite often. And it says, Bhajan kara, sadhana kara, murti janle hoy. And what that means is all the bhajan that you've done in your life, all the sadhana that you've done in your life will be tested at death, at that moment of death. So as you're saying, we should be so conscious of what we do at every moment. It's not like, you plan out a whole week and I'm going to do this and that, but no, every moment, And Krishna's telling Arjuna the same thing, you know, manmanad manabad bhakto. Engage your mind always in thinking of me. Or in a different way, you know, it doesn't matter if you're from Vaishnava tradition or this tradition or that tradition, but engage your mind in the supreme, the higher consciousness. And who is that higher consciousness? That from which everything has emanated. Take the name away. That from which everything is emanated. So that lesson that you gave from Yudhisthira, that's one of my favorites. But of course, I'd like to hear at some point the lessons that were taught to Yudhisthira by Bhishma on his deathbed, because I was just listening to that. It's like dozens and dozens and dozens of instructions. Each one had stories and sub-stories and sub-stories. I'm like, this is mind-blowing. So I'm looking forward to
that's a whole nother episode by itself.
Just by itself.
Actually, more than one episode, quite honestly, because there's so much teaching and so much wisdom to it that
yes.
Some people spend years studying that part of the Mahabharata just to get that instruction and that inspiration. And also then you have the instructions from Lord Krishna to Bhishma, which is a whole nother aspect. So it's some truly extraordinary teachings that can be found and can be illustrated in the Mahabharata in that way. So you're absolutely right.
And then one last comment, then I'll bring Sandy on, is that from the Bhagavad Gita. So for the leadership of the world today, whenever I'm asked about leadership in the world today, I said, there's one verse in Bhagavad Gita, in the scripture I follow, yat acharati shrestha. Whatever a great man does, common men follow. So stop complaining about others. Look at yourself. You become the example. So I think that's so important. So Sandy, I'll pass it over to you. Let's get some excitement going, some questions, some suggestions. Maybe people have other pastimes they want to hear from the Mahabharata.
Well, thank you so much to both our speakers, and both of you have definitely left your positive mark on the world. So we will look back on your body of work and marvel at how much you have both done. So thank you so much for your contributions, your lifetime contributions. We all benefit from it, and as we have all benefit from Yudhisthira's piece of advice, that's one of the best. And it's interesting, it's hard to hear that lesson when you're young, and it creeps up to you pretty quick when you hit 70. So
I was just going to say, it's funny it's funny you should say that, because I was thinking the same thing, is that the younger members of the audience may not relate to it that much. But, you know, when you get to be our age, it's a very relevant situation that needs to be.
Speak for yourself there, Stephen. Speak to yourself.
I am. My whole presentation was about me,
When we realize we're immortal, but the vehicles start breaking down.
Yeah.
Are we going to stay in ecstasy is the question. And when we were young and came to know of Krishna, we were pleasure seekers and wisdom seekers.
Yeah.
But
it's like my wife says, well, materially, physically, I'm not doing so well, but spiritually, I feel great.
That's right.
Very
That's
good.
the real ecstasy.
Yes.
All right, we want to hear from the audience now. If you've got a question, post it in the chat box or raise your hand if you have a comment. And if it goes on too long, forgive me now if I interrupt you. And while we're waiting a moment for that, as you can see, the Mahabharata has an endless wealth of wisdom that we can offer, which leaves us with a happy dilemma. How many sessions should we devote to the Mahabharata? Or perhaps the better question is, why should we stop exploring it when it has so much to offer?
Yeah.
So on that note, VFA is very excited to announce that we're going to host 2 more sessions in this series, and our July guests will include Andy Frankel, who's on today. Thank you for being there, Andy. And the renowned Nilesh Oak, author of numerous books on the Mahabharata. If you haven't heard of him, please YouTube him. He's got 8 to 10 million views on some of his videos. He's quite a good speaker. And for those who haven't read the Mahabharata, I said I would recommend a few books here. So for those of you who just want to start, the best modern retelling of the Mahabharata is Krishna Dharma's version. It's called The Greatest Epic, Spiritual Epic of All Time by Krishna Dharma. if you want a visual representation, we recommend the illustrated Mahabharata, the definitive guide to India's great epic. It's a lovely one to share with the family. And if you're a superstar here and you want the best comprehensive unabridged English translation, there's 10-volume box by Vivek DeBroy, and that's published by Penguin India. You may have to wait a bit of time to get it, but those are a great place to start. And after a while, you become a connoisseur of the Mahabharata, literally can spend a lifetime understanding and learning these lovely stories. So I've just posted it in the chat, and you're welcome to copy and paste it and have a look on Amazon. So do we have any questions for our speakers, if anybody here? You can raise your hand. There's that little tool down on the bottom there. Raise your hand, or just... Everyone's good? How many of you read the Mahabharata? Raise your hand if you've read the Mahabharata. Some of it. All right. All righty. All right. Somebody raised a hand with a question.
DJ. No, it's
Carla, do you want to go first?
I did that by accident. I will pull something out. There is a story in the Mahabharata, and I wonder if somebody would tell it, where just before the war, Duryodhana and Krishna show up to find Duryodhana and Arjuna show up to Krishna's abode to find him sleeping. And I just would love to hear some more than my not so nuanced way of interpreting it inside of my head from you, dear Prabhus, if you would indulge me.
Stephen, are you familiar with that story?
I'm familiar with it, but I don't, it's like one of those things where I don't have all the details. So that's about as far as I can go with it.
All right.
Maybe,
so that'll be an offline question. We'll all...
I can answer
Go
that
ahead.
if it is okay.
Yes,
Who's that?
Prabhuji.
that's our
Our
guest
guest
for tonight.
speaker.
Okay.
Sandy ji.
Lalita, please do. Go ahead.
Yeah. So what happens is Krishna will be in Dwaraka, and both Duryodhana as well as Arjuna want to go because they are all trying to form an alliance of armies. Who will fight on whose side? So Duryodhana comes first, and he wanted Krishna on his side. See, when you have the Bhagwan himself on your side, you are ensured of the victory. Okay? But what happens is Duryodhana's ego takes it over. So when Krishna is sleeping, it is considered as an insult to sit at the feet of anybody. So he thinks that, you know what, I should sit at the head, towards the head of the Krishna. And he goes and takes that place. And then Krishna, and obviously Arjuna comes. Arjuna sees that it is Bhagwan. And in front of the Bhagwan, you are always at the feet. And in fact, he doesn't even sit at all. He stands near the feet of Krishna, Bhagwan. So when Krishna wakes up, he sees Arjuna first. He knows that Duryodhana has come first, but it is also a test for Arjuna as to who will he pick, because he was going to give him a choice. So when he wakes up, he opens his eyes and he sees Arjuna first and says, "Hey Arjuna, when did you come? What is that you're seeing? What is that you seek?" And he has this conversation with Arjuna, and then finally he turns his head and says, "Oh, Duryodhana, you're also here. Okay, what's going on here? What can I do? What can I help?" And then obviously Duryodhana says that I have come here to seek your alliance and blessings for the war, Kurukshetra. Then Krishna says, see, since I saw Arjuna first, I have to give him the first choice of choosing what he wants. So he puts two offers in front of these two gentlemen, both Arjuna as well as Duryodhana. He said, you can pick me, that I will be there on your side, but I will not touch the weapon. I will not hold the weapon, and I will not participate in the war. I will be, weaponless. That is one. Or equivalent to my strength is called Narayani Sena. It is the Narayani army, army of the Narayana. I can give that to you. Which one do you seek? And Arjuna says, Bhagavan, all I need is you beside me. And Duryodhana is thinking, what a fool Arjuna is. Meaning, see, Narayani army is equivalent to almost like 11 lakhs Akshahinis. Meaning, we'll explain what Akshahini. That's how, nowadays we use the word battalion and stuff like that, or fourth army, fifth army. That's what we call. But Akshahini is the way we used to measure the armies in those times. Maybe we will pick it up on some other day. But he picks Narayani Sena and Arjuna picks Bhagwan, and the rest is history. I'll cut it short because I want to be cognizant of the time. No matter what, Arjuna picks Bhagwan, and then you know what happened at the end of the war. So always choosing Bhagwan, meaning always when you see Mahabharata, there is an actual story and there is a spiritual story and a message that is being sent. No matter what, we can be sucked, meaning Duryodhana, when he would have picked the army too, if he was given the first choice. But Bhagavan wanted to test Arjuna as to what will he pick, and Arjuna made the right choice. I hope I answered your question, ma'am. I'll revert back.
That was a very good rendition of that. Very nice.
Yes, beautiful. In fact, he's going to be one of our speakers coming up in the series of Mahabharata. Yeah.
One other point in that is that Krishna gave Arjuna the first choice.
Yes.
And Duryodhana was very, very upset about that. He said, I'm here first. Why is Arjuna getting the first choice? But Krishna explains to Duryodhana that Arjuna is the younger one. Let us satisfy the younger one first. And so Duryodhana is actually totally relieved when Arjuna simply requests Krishna to join his forces. And Duryodhana, he gets to his satisfaction, he gets Krishna's army. So the Pandavas are actually outnumbered. There are 11 Akshahini divisions on the side of Duryodhana, and there are only 7 Akshahini divisions on the side of the Pandavas. So, that 11-7 is an interesting contrast. So this is a very interesting story about humility. And the problem is, of course, that Duryodhana has no humility, and that can be seen throughout the Mahabharata.
Thank you. Wow.
Sankirtan, I think we've all had a lovely little sampling today of a couple guests that are coming. Sankirtan next month. He's a well-known storyteller in the ISKCON community, so we're looking forward to that. And Lalita Ananda Natha, I hope I've said your name correctly. I understand that you're going to be a guest coming up, so we're looking forward to that. You obviously know the Mahabharata well. And it's so wonderful to be in this association because each speaker draws out something from the Mahabharata. And those that have lived with the Mahabharata all of their life are so fortunate to have been sort of brought up with it. As Jeffrey always says, it's kind of in your breast milk that you know the Mahabharata and the Bhagavad Gita and Dharma. And here in the West, we, struggle to read the books and find a guru and give up our families and our jobs just to have this kind of association and to have these stories. And I say when we're on tour, we always say to the youth of India, please, please do not give up this valuable treasure. It is such a gift to the world, the Sanatan Dharma. So I want to thank everybody for being here with us today, and I hope you'll join us next month. And if you have any topics that you'd like us to cover, let us know that too. So during the summer, we'll be doing three talks, three in the series of the Mahabharata, and then we'll move on to another topic. And Benny, would you like to, or let me just say this, if those of you who are online enjoyed this talk, please go to vedicfriends.org and make a small donation. This is what keeps these things going. We're all doing it for the love of it, but the technology bills have to be paid. So we don't need the money, but the system does. So we do appreciate it. Benny?
Please
No, I just want
make one last point, actually.
Go ahead, Sankirtan, please.
Because earlier there was talk about the teachings of Grandfather Bhishmadev, who was lying on a bed of arrows. He was he fell on the 10th day of the battle. And it was about 2 months later after the battle that Yudhisthira was feeling so morose, so guilty that so many people had died on just because he wanted to acquire the throne. So he was advised to go back and seek guidance from Grandfather Bhishmadev. And he and the Pandavas and Krishna himself, they all returned. And so in the entire Mahabharata of about 100,000 verses, 25% of the book is about the teachings of Grandfather Bhishmadev to Yudhisthira. That's a pretty sizable amount of information right there. And so, like Stephen Knapp mentioned earlier, that would be a whole other undertaking to study that in itself. So interestingly enough, Krishna gave guidance to Arjuna at before the battle, and then Grandfather Bhishmadev gave guidance to Yudhisthira after the battle. Wow. So it's an interesting position you have, that the Mahabharata is full of guidance.
That's beautiful. I just want to share one exciting thing that happened in Atlanta some years ago with the Mahabharata. And 3 ISKCON actors, only three, came to Atlanta for our festival. And they put on the entire Mahabharata. And we advertised it in the local news media. And the media was like, how do you do the Mahabharata with 3 people? And they came and they did it, and the temple room was packed to capacity. I was videotaping. The interest in Mahabharata is out there in the public. Now that we're featuring it, we should get more and more people to come and enjoy this wonderful session. So thank you to all the speakers. Thank you to all the guests. We look forward to our next wonderful Dharma Dialogue on July 2nd. Is it July 2nd? Something like that. Not July 4th, but around July 2nd. The first Thursday of the month. So thank you all, and please join us for that. And we wish you all a wonderful evening. Hare Krishna. Namaste.